Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Knowledge Concised. Today we have topic on cross-border insurgency and terrorism in Asia, an evolved post-colonial narrative. The tension between Afghanistan and Pakistan that is growing day by day. The tension between Pakistan and India that is growing day by day. And somehow the issues between China, India, Malaysia, Indonesia, Philippines, as well as Indonesia. But a serious and structural question is that why these particular problems are still exist here, which is having identity-based politics, state-sponsored terrorism, insurgency and counter-insurgency movements inside and outside of international borders. We have set some of the examples into our today's lecture. We will discuss Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, Pakistan, Northeast India, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia. Introduce the area which is basically stretching from the Hindu Kush to the Western Pacific. The four zones of major cross-border insurgent activity examined here reflect obvious dissimilarities in geography, ethnicity, military culture and tactics, and not least the roots of conflict, social and political forces fueling violence in the borderlands of southeastern Afghanistan and Pakistan's border have little in common with those underpinning the disaffection of Muslim communities on the islands of the Sulu Sea. Nevertheless, the variables emerge as drivers of a cross-border dynamic that invariably exacerbates and prolongs conflict. One is physical and social, the other the specific nature of state-to-state relations. Notwithstanding the diplomatic baggage of Manila's claim to Sabah, a similarly cooperative relationship between the three states confronting the cross-border dynamics that support insurgency in these three Indonesia, Malaysia, and Thailand's relations. It is worth stressing, however, that in the modern era, these cooperative impulses have not been a given in Southeast Asia. Thailand has had a long tradition of accommodating or supporting insurgent groups, and from this land, insurgent activities are carried out throughout these particular territories. The Malaysia frontier included, while in the 1970s, covert Malaysian backing for the MNLF fueled a bitter war with Philippine government forces in Sulu and other regions. This is just because that in that manner, this is unthinkable in the context of the common threats posed by certain jihadist terrorism today. Take for example Afghanistan as well as Pakistan. The Afghan territory is being misused by certain regional and other superpowers, while Pakistan and India, they are labeling as well as accusing each other for counter and insurgencies inside and outside of their borders, while the rest of the region is also fueled this particular notion that the region is being used by certain insurgent groups as well as insurgent mercenaries as well as insurgent groups. Now the question is that why the menace of these particular problems are still exist while Europe and North American states, they are free of it. Once the region was volatile for certain socio-cultural as well as political growth, but now they are facing serious problems, and these serious problems are needed to be addressed. Coming to address the first question, Afghanistan and Pakistan. The modern day Afghanistan, when Ahmad Shah Durrani in the 18th century, Afghanistan territories were actually conquered, and he named them Afghanistan from the Oxus to the Indus. The first problem what we had and the world saw, that is a given manifest inability to conquer all Afghanistan. and the utility of that country as a buffer against southern expansion of Tsarist Russia towards British India. When the British conquered India and subjugated some of the territories of Afghanistan, they turned and they named these territories inside and outside the British Empire with a border, and they named it a border of Devon line, which was basically marked in 1893. Again, the Soviet in 1979, while the decolonization process in 1947 further aggravated the situation between these states and for these particular states, particularly for Afghanistan and Pakistan. Afghanistan was not ready to accept this particular border and had claims over FATA and other areas recently added to Pakistan state. While Pakistan had claims that these territories actually granted in their liberation from British Raj in 1947. Later on, the ill-fated Soviet invasion in Afghanistan further aggravated Pakistan in general and the region of Devon line in particular. Before 1979, there were no insurgencies in this particular region. But when Soviet invaded Afghanistan and Iran faced an Islamist revolution, the area remained a volatile and most, we can say, favorite region for certain groups. As Lucian Pai, in his book Aspects of Political Development, termed these areas as fragmented territories, and nobody is having a claim of power as well as exercising authority. The Soviets were actually defeated by Afghan Mujahideen. Later, Afghan Mujahideen basically declared their victory in Afghanistan and they established their centralized rule in Afghanistan. And the territory of Afghanistan was a volatile and favorite territory for other guerrilla as well as non-state actors. They were coming from all the corners of the world, particularly from those fragmented regions. Later on, after 9/11, United States attacked, and through this particular attack, an invasion over Afghanistan further aggravated the situation, where the region remained an unstable region for both Pakistan as well as Afghanistan, where Afghan territory since then as well as to attack on Pakistan. In the backdrop of second topic, we have Northeast India, home to the world's most diverse web of ethnic insurgencies. India's northeast has been persistent conflict since 1956. The Indian Army was first called in to restore government authority in the Naga Hills, where a startling proliferation of insurgent groups seeking either secession from or greater autonomy within the Indian Union have launched violent campaigns in all 7 states, including Nagaland, Manipuri, Mizoram, Meghalaya, Tripura, Arunachal Pradesh, and not least the large and the most populous region or state of Assam. Northeastern insurgency and its terrorist offshoots have been fundamentally rooted in the challenges of assimilating into the fabric of a new nation state, a patchwork of ethnically and religiously diverse communities, hill tribes and plains people, Christian, Hindu, and animist. At the same time, however, insurgency in the Northeast has been profoundly impacted by unremitting regional geostrategic rivalries that date back to the First Anglo-Burmese War of 1824, followed by a decolonization process where the local people and their grievances were not addressed by the newly established central government. The problem with Asian countries that in the post-colonial tendency, they did not hear the voices coming from the sub-national or sub-ethnic classes. And that created an exploitative political system and resulted into a misgovernance or bad governance where a lot of people, they were ignored, and still they are being ignored by these centralized governments, whether that is India or Pakistan or somewhere else. The third one is Pakistan and India. The other one, India and Pakistan tension. For Pakistan, weaker in conventional military terms than its giant neighbor. Stoking the fires of India's internal discords has long been a strategic reflex, not least in the northeast. From 1962 onward, Naga, Manipuri, and Mizo rebels were all provided sanctuary, training, and weaponry in erstwhile East Pakistan, modern Bangladesh. It was a tradition that independent Bangladesh under the nationalist administration of then Premier Khalida Zia was to emulate until a crackdown imposed after 2009 by the pro-Indian Awami League government. Northeastern rebels, notably the United Liberation Front of Assam, were provided with safe houses and travel documents by Bangladeshi military intelligence. Following the Sino-Indian border war of October 1962, China too moved to exploit India's vulnerabilities. In the northeast, the first of a series of Naga insurgent contingents trekked across northern Myanmar to the Chinese border in 1967 and was given training and weaponry in Yunnan. Later, left-leaning Manipuri rebels were trained in Tibet. Today, China is more circumspect in providing direct military training, but continues to permit several factions to maintain liaison offices in Yunnan province and purchase arms on China's grey market. Thailand, Malaysia. Predictably, the rising profile of the Islamic State in the region and the emergence of Islamic State-inspired self-starter cells in Malaysia have focused the attention of governments and news media on possible links into southern Thailand. However, BRN's own ideology and objectives militate against the forging of any such organizational links. As an organization, BRN remains fundamentally opposed to Islamic State's Salafist ideology and terrorist tactics, while the tight-knit clandestine nature of its military networks weigh heavily against the prospect of rough and rogue elements being co-opted by its interlopers from the south of the borders. As seen by Malaysian intelligence sources, the real danger of cross-border connectivity resides today in the likelihood of Malaysian Islamic State cells looking to southern Thailand as a black market for both readily available firearms and no less dangerously bomb-making expertise that over 13 years has proliferated beyond BRN's current operational networks. The last one is a triangular topic. What we have is Philippines, Malaysia, and Indonesia. Within months of 9/11, as the world experienced, and the US intervention to uproot Al-Qaeda, sanctuaries in Afghanistan, Southeast Asia was identified as a second front in the new global war on terror. 15 years later, the military collapse of the Islamic State's caliphate in Syria and Iraq is giving rise to a strikingly similar narrative, in which the region's emergence as a focus of global jihadist activity is again being assessed. Then as now, one of the most salient challenges in countering the terrorist threat in Southeast Asia lies in the movement of territories with terrorists and weapons in the tri-border zone that connects the majority Muslim states of Malaysia and Indonesia with the active insurgent zones of southern Philippines. Vast and largely unpoliced, the tri-border region centers on two seas: the Sulu Sea, lying between the Visayas in the Philippines and Sabah in East Malaysia, and the Celebes Sea, which stretches from the Philippine island of to Indonesia.